Tesla has laid off their Supercharger entire division. There are some rumors, some theories, and some ideas. I know it's a topic that's been discussed, but we've got more to discuss. Apparently, backed by popular demand, there have been a lot of comments. We're going to address them. I'm Brian. Welcome to Futuraza. I'm joined today by Mark from the Tesla Life, as I sometimes am, and I appreciate it. He runs a weekly podcast with the rest of the crew over there. Patrick and Casey do fantastic work, and sometimes Patrick isn't a ghost. That's an inside joke. Go back and watch their channel. It'd be a few weeks back now, but he was having camera problems, and I gave him a hard time with love. Mark, thanks for joining me.
Thanks, Brian.
Yeah, I don't know if you heard, but something happened this week. Might have been a big deal. Did you hear about that?
I don't know if I've heard anything about Tesla.
About Tesla, just generally. So, for those who haven't heard, there was 10% layoffs across the board. Every division was told, well, maybe not every division, but there was big layoffs. And one of the things that happened, then we heard, by the way, the head of Supercharging has been removed or has resigned, and the entire division is gone. That leaves a lot of questions, a lot of concerns. Break it down for me.
That was a bit of a surprise happening midweek, that the entire division disappeared overnight. Everyone got basically layoff letters remotely, and all of a sudden, the contacts that were out there in Tesla for the utilities, the property owners, different groups that were putting superchargers in place, getting them commissioned, all of a sudden phone numbers stopped working. Employees weren't there to answer the phones or the emails that were coming in about updates, about questions. And it happened suddenly. And all of a sudden, that's it. The whole division is basically gone overnight. And it was shocking that would happen in a fluent business that has so many moving parts. We've seen the growth of the Supercharger network. We've seen how many come online. In many days, there's a number of different sites that come online, and to have everybody disappear is it's strange.
I found it very strange as well. So what I would say is Elon was quick to point out, no, we'll still be expanding, just not as quickly, which I find a little concerning. I'm not excited about that. And he said, we're going to focus on uptime, which I haven't.
Has that been a problem?
I haven't ever seen a problem with that. I've seen endless problems with every other brand, but not with Tesla. And he said also, we're going to expand at existing locations. Do you think that's something that's easy or doable or likely?
As far as I can see, Brian, when it comes to expanding at present locations, it's almost like putting in a brand new location anyways. You've got all of these permits to file. You've got the possibility that transformers have to be upgraded because these things use a lot of power, and putting in another bank of superchargers sometimes requires new equipment. Trenching has to happen. It's really a new build.
It is a new build, and that's what Tesla has been doing. Is they were asked, why don't you update all these V2, V3s with V4s and call that good enough? And the answer was, it is just as much work to replace those as it is to build a new location. So what we're going to do is, if you need a kidney transplant, did you know they don't take out your old kidney unless it's deeply diseased? Because it's still doing a little bit of work, and now you have 3 kidneys. It's better than removing the old kidney. It's weird, but congratulations on your 3rd kidney. And then now you've got also a new, if there's road construction or a parade in that part of town, you've also got the 2nd location that's completely in a different space. And it might be a better space. It might be a worse space, but now you've got options. And some people don't need to charge fast. Some people, especially if they're coming in from other brands, can't charge fast. So that's expansion. And I saw someone say, well, do you really need 500 people to get permits? Have you ever pulled one permit? Because Every city has different rules, every county, every state, and you have to know which jurisdiction you're in. And then you have to contact them during the hours they're open. And it might be that they only do permits certain days of the week during certain hours. And then there's the time difference. So if they're on the East Coast and they want it done by noon, someone's got to talk to them by 9 a.m. Pacific. Permits are famously difficult to work with. And how many different utilities are there? How many different power authorities? I tried to put in a shed at my old house, and I spent probably 2 years before permitting. We ended up selling the house before we could get it done. There were just too many moving pieces. We couldn't do it. Expansion isn't easy. And like you said, if you have to pull new power, even from the street, that's a nightmare. But you might have to pull it all the way back from the substation. If you're putting in 8 or 16 new V4s, that's a lot. You do not have that much juice at that location, I guarantee you.
Yeah, think about the parts that have to be ordered from the utility, a new transformer, a new system to handle that, and those all have to be ordered. And then there's back orders waiting for that kind of stuff. Like, this is not something that you just roll in and install 6 new chargers. That just doesn't happen.
I was in Everett, Washington, when the day that this was recorded. And Everett, Washington has a fantastic supercharger location near the mall. I guess that'd be in South Everett. And it's, a level 3. It's quick. It's reasonably close to the highway. It's about, I don't know, 16 stalls-ish, but it gets pretty busy sometimes. And it's 20 cents a kilowatt. It's so cheap. But we were tooling around and I said, well, we haven't been to Everett in 20 years. Let's drive around and see what's changed. And we went all the way to North Everett, where most of the people are renters, but have houses. And we popped in to say, well, where's the nearest charger? It's the one we were at. You have to get on the highway to get back to it. There are no superchargers in North Everett, where a lot of people would not have the ability necessarily to put in their own at home without tremendous cost that goes to their landlord, and maybe not even have the permission to do that. So there are still gaps in coverage. And even if you could make that one near the mall much bigger, I don't know that it would be super helpful for people. It wouldn't add the same amount of benefit. Somebody else provided a map that showed all these different circles where there's gaps. And somebody said, well, you put a big circle over Lake Huron. And it's like, well, right. But the circle is actually the 2 coasts around it where there are no superchargers. And there are, hundreds of thousands, maybe a million people in that circle. And yes, there's also a lake. Ignore the lake, just cover the 2 coasts. It's a problem. There's not enough juice there. So there are still gaps. Another concern I have is other companies are about to come onto this network. How are we going to deal with that? We're still selling millions of cars that need sometimes charging. How are we going to handle that?
Yeah, that's the reason why I think that Tesla has dropped the ball here a little bit. I'm not sure as to why the timing was to do this, because as you mentioned, we're adding a bunch of different manufacturers to the Supercharger network, all coming this year, all rolling on. Now, granted, they're not as in great as numbers as Tesla is already. But the other point is Tesla's selling a couple million cars a year. That adds up to a lot. Yes. Just over the next couple of years. Like that's 4 million cars in 2 years or less.
Yes.
It's something that you're going to have to deal with. I don't want them to get behind the ball and get rolled over here with demand. That would be a bad scenario. So I'm kind of curious as to why they've picked this time to become that they have to get their costs under control, or they have to get their employee numbers under control in this particular arena where they're actually getting paid for the use of these chargers, and the payment is now increased.
Yes, you pay more as a non-Tesla owner to use the network. This is good money. Maybe a year or 2 ago, there was a video I made looking at the case for why third-party charging doesn't work. And the reason came down to them being grossly underutilized. So many of the third-party chargers sit idle so much of the time, and a lot of that is because of downtime, because the equipment just isn't good enough. That downtime, if you could remain well utilized, you can actually make money. And especially if you're charging a premium like that, you can make money. If a million cars decide they want to charge on Tesla's network and pay the same rate that you and I pay, they have to pay $12.99 a month for a non-Tesla fee. That's $12.99 million a month. That's good money to grow the network. So let's look at the potential upside. Someone I saw said, well, maybe their plan is to leave it to others. And I don't mean with their garbage equipment. I mean, let's buy some, sell Tesla V4 chargers to someone and let them install them. Is that a possibility?
We have seen some evidence of that, very low amount of evidence, but my real concern is we've seen what people have done to this point. I'm kind of worried about how they're going to be able to follow the model, but it's a good start, but I'm not sure it can fill the gap that we're talking about.
And if that was in the works, the people whose job it is to get it done are gone.
Yeah.
This is not a mature program. BP bought $100 million worth of chargers. Another one that we had talked about in the green room was in Europe. That was the EG Group to acquire Tesla chargers for a network. They hope to eventually roll out 20,000 chargers in the UK and Europe. I mean, that's not a whole lot when you're considering a continent, but every bit helps. And other companies can do this. I don't know if their motivations are in the right place because BP stands to benefit from doing a bad job. So we will have to wait and see.
But as you said, Brian, who's going to monitor the program on Tesla's side? Who's going to train them on how to maintain these systems? Who's going to be there to answer questions or calls when these third parties run into a wall and they're not quite sure about what to do? If the expertise is no longer there, how are they going to spread the excellence that we've seen in the Tesla network to this point?
I imagine the short answer is some of those roles will be rolled into another department where they will be overseen by someone else. Domestic operations, I don't know. Some division is going to have to be in charge. I mean, you can't just have no one in charge or the network will immediately begin to decay. And like you said, there were rumors that absolutely everyone's gone. I'd heard a rumor that the head of the division was given an ultimatum to lay off a number of people that was deemed too high and unacceptable. And when that did not materialize, the answer from on high was, fine, then you're all gone, which is cutting off everyone's nose to spite one person's face who's not here anymore. So that's magical, and I'm definitely a big fan of that. Another rumor I'd heard was, well, they're just pivoting to new products. They're pivoting, robotaxi's right around the corner, Mark. Why do we need more chargers if we have robotaxi?
I don't know, because maybe we've got, 8 million Teslas on the road already, and they're not disappearing. As we've said, they're increasing by a clip of over 2 million a year.
Yes. Yes. We're still adding more. We have a lot. We're adding more for the next years, at least 2-3 more years of expected increase in consumer automotive passenger vehicles. And then all the other companies coming into the network. That is to me the time for expansion. My problem with robotaxi in this equation is A, it doesn't exist. And B, it still needs to be charged. Now, maybe it's being charged back at a depot, but that depot needs superchargers. The depot where they perform cleaning and maintenance and inspections, whatever it is that is done at a dispatch center for vehicles of that nature. Well, inductive charging. Maybe they're going to switch to inductive charging. Then they won't need superchargers.
Yeah, those are still superchargers. They're inductive.
They're still superchargers, and they're more complicated. And I would hasten to point out that, like Robotaxi, those also don't exist. I've seen a lot of misunderstanding about what inductive is and how it works. They say, well, there's ones that are within 1, 2, 3% as efficient as just a hardwired connection. It's like, yes, if it is touching, if it is physically touching a plate, if it rises up and makes like when you put your phone on the charger, if you were to try and hold your phone a foot and a half above the charger, okay, 6 to 8 inches above the charger, but add to that, it's got to be under the pavement. Maybe it's sitting, but if it's under the pavement, I mean, you cannot have an air gap and have efficiency. That's not how inductive charging works. There's no magic technology that changes that. So if it's above ground, it's prone to damage or abuse. If it moves, it's prone to getting dirt in it or something to screw it up. If it's on the vehicle and moves, and all of this still forgets the fact that we still have millions of cars that don't have this and won't. And we're still making millions more.
Brian, are you planning on, as soon as the Robotaxi's been introduced, are you planning on shelving your vehicle and never driving it again? Like we've paid for the right to drive these cars. We want to drive them. We love them. Yeah, I'm not putting mine away anytime soon.
Even if Tesla stops making 3YSX and Cybertruck, all the other manufacturers are going to be years behind on autonomy, and they will continue building vehicles that go into the supercharger system. So I cannot fathom a smart business reason why this would happen. It feels like Elon is less in war mode and more in rampage mode. And to his credit, Wall Street doesn't seem particularly upset about this, but Wall Street doesn't often look beyond the quarter. And I think that might be a disadvantage. Well, Optimus is coming. Maybe they will deal with charging the cars. I don't understand how that fixes the problem unless they're coming to my house to do. I don't see how that changes anything. Have you seen any other weird comments or theories that we should mention? In the comments, you guys can tell us, are there other weird theories that we should discuss about this supercharger situation?
Yeah, there's a bunch of theories out there. As you said, a lot of people are throwing a lot of things at the wall to see if it sticks, because this has been such a strange and sudden change of direction that everyone's trying to figure out, is there logic behind this, or is there not logic behind this? And as far as I can see, weighing all the theories out there, it just kind of seems like a knee-jerk reaction to somebody that couldn't reduce their head count quick enough for somebody else's demands. And that's kind of what I'm seeing.
I don't understand why they needed the big headcount reduction anyway. I understand trimming the fat. I understand even large trimmings, but there are people who are essential. I can tell you that my car is in the shop for service. I have a service loaner right now, and I was warned it may be a little while. We were not immune to the cuts. And I thought, the service center's not immune to the cuts? This is discouraging. They strike me as essential, but I've got a service loaner. It's got 200 miles a day allowance and free supercharging. So I'm going to be doing that. It's a good thing they don't have vehicle to grid. Otherwise, I'd just keep charging it and selling the juice. But I think they'd figure that out pretty quick and put an end to that. They would notice, boy, there's a mismatch in miles versus watts here, my friend. But that's a different matter. I would like to say that apparently Kyle Connor from Out of Spec made a video discussing his thoughts on it, which I've been told by several people is fantastic and I must watch it. And I apologize that I haven't. I've been unavailable this week. I had a very pressing matter in another town, a family matter that has been consuming absolutely all of my energy and all of my headspace. And we get.
I did watch the video. Kyle certainly was perplexed as to why all of a sudden overnight none of the phone numbers worked to the Tesla team, because of course they were let go remotely. and their passwords wouldn't work anymore. They didn't have access to the system, and the phone calls and emails in that morning went unanswered. Everyone found out shortly as to what happened, why the phone's not being answered. But again, it's concerning for those Tesla partners that are out there as to why things were dropped so suddenly.
So that's not a rumor. That's not a leak. That's direct from Kyle Connor. If you haven't watched Out of Spec, he is trustworthy. He's neutral. He's an absolute powerhouse when it comes to these kinds of things. He was I don't know if you know this, but he was in the Porsche Taycan that set the EV cannonball record during lockdown. That was him and some people he knows. But and by the way, coast to coast, how much time did they spend charging from New York to LA? 2 hours and 20 minutes.
Wow.
Oh, you can't road trip in an EV. Shut your mouth, my friend. Yes, you can. Well, yeah, but they had to plan it. Well, yeah. I mean, do you not plan your trips? I plan my trips. And I've gotten better about not planning my trips because there's a lot of advantage to just kind of freewheeling, but not always. So I will watch that. I have more headspace. We'll get the resolution on the situation on Tuesday afternoon, and then I'll have hopefully another 5 to 10 years before I have to think about it again. So, it's if you really need to know, you'll have to ask me in person when we meet, because it's not anyway. But it should be better soon. So what did we miss? What did we misunderstand? Do me a favor, if you wouldn't mind, head on over to the Tesla Life and leave a comment next time you watch a video. They go out live every week at 4 p.m. Pacific.
Correct.
On Wednesdays.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. And it's a great show and it's a lot of fun. And if you want questions, if you've got a burning question, they read the chat and they interact with the chat, which is something I wish I saw more of on live streams from some of the big channels. They don't. There are some big channels where they'll get bunches and bunches of super chats and just ignore it. Wouldn't that be a luxury? But I love the comments and I love the community, and it's a lot of work, but it's what I do. So, everybody else in the comments, what do we miss? What do we misunderstand? Leave it in there. And for the rest of you guys, like, subscribe, do all the usual. If you're really feeling generous, you could head on over to my Patreon, my YouTube channel to become a member, or X. And look at that. I need to remove this part because the referral program is deed. So that's better. And so let us know. And thanks for hanging out. And Mark, thanks to you too.
Thanks, Brian.